recording. Welcome to another mini podcast, an emergency one. My name's Jeremy Reisman. I'm the managing editor of Pride of Detroit. We have got a big show for you tonight, a big mini show because it is a mini podcast, just about 30 minutes, but big news around the Detroit Lions, which we'll get to in a second. But before I do that, let me introduce our co-host for this evening. Ryan Matthews is back with us at Ryan_POD. Ryan, good to see your face again.
I forgot that I don't get my little intro drop, but thank you, Jeremy. It's nice to see your face again, too.
Yeah, this is a mini podcast, so we have to get going. We can't spend time talking about your theme song, which is what I'm currently doing, wasting time. So let me jump over to our other co-host, who you may recognize from yesterday's mini podcast where we talked about the 53-man roster. John Whitaker is here. John, how are you doing, buddy? Good to see you again.
Doing well. Back-to-back appearances. Man, you guys should charge me extra for this.
I think that's how it works, right? You pay us to be on the podcast? Is that how it's supposed to work?
Exactly.
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Well, yes, let's talk about the big news of the day before a lot of people even woke up on Sunday morning, before practice squads were made or waiver claims were made. The Lions are signing Adrian Peterson to a one-year deal, just over $1 million, with incentives up to $2.3 million. Lions haven't announced the move officially yet. They'll likely do that on Monday morning, along with a corresponding move yet to be determined. But it's basically a done deal. Peterson has talked to the media. It's going to happen. Adrian Peterson is going to be a Detroit Lion after years of tormenting the Lions defense as a member of the Minnesota Vikings. Ryan, since I haven't heard from you in a while, give me your immediate reactions, because you kind of teased this when he got cut. You were like, kind of, yeah, let's make it happen.
I just was rooting for chaos at that point. I wanted to see what an Adrian Peterson Honolulu blue jersey would look like. And I wanted to it gave me an immediate callback to Dante Culpepper in a Lions jersey. Hopefully they are not similar tenures, but I think what stands out immediately as the most interesting thing about the Adrian Peterson signing is the running backs room went from very young to all of a sudden this veteran presence that, I mean, Adrian Peterson is a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. Is he going to be comfortable playing such a, playing such a situational role, because last year in Washington, he had 211 carries. The year before that, he had 251, and he's no spring chicken anymore. He's 35 years old. So I'm really interested to see how he handles a reduced workload, because we talk about this a lot of the time. Running backs really get into a rhythm, and some backs are just rhythm backs. And I think Adrian Peterson is one of those guys who, the longer a game goes on and the more carries he gets, it's almost like the better he gets, because he can wear down his opponents. I don't know if that luxury is going to happen here in Detroit. I don't know if there is another subsequent move that's going to happen. John, how do you feel about the Peterson signing?
I'm probably a bit more skeptical of it from a pure football perspective. Obviously, when you bring in someone that old, you have to wonder how much does he have left in the tank. And Peterson's a guy who has a lot of wear and tear on him. Yeah, I mean, essentially, he was a bell cow in Minnesota, and he hasn't been as much in recent years with Washington. But still, you have to wonder. And the Lions have been burnt with guys like LeGarrette Blount, for example, where it's like, oh, maybe they'll get like 1 or 2 more good years, and nope, essentially it became just a waste of a handoff, really. I don't think Peterson's going to be that bad. Last year with Washington, he was still averaging 4.3 yards per carry. So I'm a little bit optimistic about that from a football perspective, but I'm still pretty hesitant. I mean, I think for the price, it's okay. And I think, the veteran leadership. I mean, we saw Kerryon Johnson tweet about how he wanted to take a picture and essentially get a fangirl about it. But I'm still kind of a bit hesitant to get on board with the signing.
Yeah, to me, it's a move that makes sense based on what the Lions are trying to do, because, like you said, I mean, you brought up LeGarrette Blount, C.J. Anderson. Like, it's clear they have a type. This is the kind of player that they want, except effective. And I'm not one to say that Adrian Peterson is finally going to hit that, that 35-year-old wall or anything like that. I'm not going to bet against Adrian Peterson. But at the same time, I don't know if I'm really in love with this move. I don't like the idea of kicking off, the youth. He's taking up a roster spot of basically someone that would have been younger and more developmental. This is a move that you make if you think you're a power running back away from competing for a playoff spot or for a championship or a division title. And I'm not saying the Lions aren't capable of doing that. We just had our preview podcast a couple days ago, and I said they'd go 9-7, and Week 17 would be for the division. So I certainly think it's possible. But it's a weird deal. I'm not hating on it. I don't love it. And like I said, it's a cheap deal. It's one that makes sense with what the Lions are trying to do. I was just starting to warm to the idea of this team doesn't need to have that power back anymore. They have Kerryon Johnson who likes to run physical. DeAndre Swift likes to run physical. They decided to keep Bo Scarborough, and that's fine with me, having him as kind of that third down back, short yardage back. To me, that was fine. I was perfectly okay with that. And now you get Adrian Peterson, you throw him into the mix, and now who knows what happens. We already have lost one of the Lions' young running backs. Sounds like another one might be out the door. We'll see what the corresponding move is on Monday, but I don't know. The other way to look at this is that role that you're talking about, Ryan. You said, is he willing to take a complementary role? Is he going to be as effective in a complementary role? And I think that's where we have to discuss here is like, what is his role going to be in Detroit? Because Adrian Peterson is a guy with a lot of pride. He was a guy that wanted to go somewhere prior to this where he was going to be featured significantly. And I think a lot of people are like, okay, well, now he'll just kind of fit into that situational role, play some short yardage plays, and then be in and out. But I don't think I see it that way. I mean, I know the Lions have Kerryon Johnson. I know they have DeAndre Swift, but a guy like Adrian Peterson comes in and he's at least your number 2, in my opinion, because like you said, 211 carries last year. That was the 17th most in the NFL. You think Adrian Peterson decided to come to Detroit and carry it 3 times a game? Absolutely not. Like, he's going to be a 10 touch at least guy per game, and that's not an insignificant load, and it's going to cut into someone. My guess is Kerryon Johnson, but I'm curious as to what you guys think.
Yeah, it could be Kerryon Johnson, and I think it's pretty clear from the way that the running backs room is constructed as is, because you have DeAndre Swift, you have Ty Johnson. Now we're going to get into the Lions kind of surprisingly cutting Jason Huntley. and him ending up, elsewhere. But it seems like they're starting to establish a type with more speed and more more agility in the backfield. Going to Adrian Peterson at 35 years old doesn't exactly fit that bill, but I want to remind everybody of his time in New Orleans, which was very short-lived. I mean, when he signed with New Orleans, it was his first year out of Minnesota. It was a 2-year deal, and he lasted a year, and he only played in 4 games. And I think that he just wasn't built for being part of like a running back by committee type deal, and things didn't work out. Now, I don't know if it was just the situation or the fit, but at least now I think we have to assume that the level of comfortability that he has with Darrell Bevell, maybe that has to be one of the most important things to him. But I don't know. I think this could end up eating into Kerryon Johnson, because Adrian Peterson isn't a third down back. So what carries is he going to take? It's going to be on first and second down, and you would assume that would primarily be Kerryon Johnson time or DeAndre Swift time.
Yeah, I think you make a good case there, and the other factor obviously here is DeAndre Swift's injury. Who, it seems like he's finally back to maybe not 100%, but ready to practice again. And so the question is, maybe Kerryon Johnson is 1A to begin with. Then, while they ease in Swift, he's maybe 2, while Adrian Peterson is 1B. And then once Swift is healthy, maybe it's Swift 1A, Adrian Peterson 1B, and then, Kerryon Johnson, guy who gets 2 or 3 touches a game. That's kind of how I see it playing out. Maybe, it all depends on how healthy DeAndre Swift is, and it's kind of unclear whether the Lions were just taking it extremely cautious with him, or if he was kind of considerably injured for a while there. But what about you, John? What are your thoughts on how Adrian Peterson fits into this offense right away?
Kind of on the same page as you guys, and there's a lot of uncertainty going forward. Now, I think the Lions do benefit from trying to reduce the workload.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we saw it last year with injuries derailing Kerryon Johnson. We might even be seeing it this year with DeAndre Swift. And if you can kind of limit the touches, a running back by committee isn't necessarily a bad approach. And I think having Peterson, who's really, he's only similar to Bo Scarborough on the offense, I would say. There isn't necessarily a redundancy by having him on the team. And I think, we talked about having a bit of a power back is always a good, asset to have. But my concerns, it comes back to just what level Peterson's going to be at. And we saw this with LeGarrette Blount, and he was essentially a waste of a touch every single time he carried the football. I believe he had the worst yards per carry by quite a while. And my other thing is, look at the team that released him, Washington. Now, I know they're not necessarily the gold standard for football franchises, but they don't really have that many consistent running backs behind them. They have Peyton Barber, who averaged 3.1 yards per carry last year. They have Antonio Gibson, who is a converted wide receiver. They have Bryce Love, who's coming off a ACL injury in college, and they have J.D. McKissick. So you're telling me that you couldn't find a role for Adrian Peterson in that group. Now, I know you can argue that they're rebuilding, they're looking for youth, but I feel like the Lions probably should have been in that similar mindset. I don't really know how someone like Ty Johnson fits into this roster. He is definitely the speediest guy, one of the speediest guys on the team. But how many touches is he going to get on offense if all of a sudden you have Swift, you have Johnson, you have Peterson? I don't really know how he's going to find a spot barring injury.
Yeah, I think the answer with Ty Johnson is probably special teams, because that's another kind of reason to maybe not like this pick as much. Is we're not getting any special teams out of Adrian Peterson. You're not getting a 35-year-old out there to go run the length of the field and crash into someone. That's not happening with Adrian Peterson. But I wanna pull in this quote from Adrian Peterson to Josina Anderson via Twitter, because I see some people in our chat, curious that Adrian Peterson might not get any play at all. He said to Josina, "They're giving me an opportunity to play. I know Coach Bevell from my days in Minnesota. Ultimately, I feel comfortable going there and helping them to get better." That to me is pretty clear, saying they told me I'm getting a significant role here. That's all I needed to hear. Being with Bev is obviously a cherry on the top for him, but I think he's going to get an opportunity. I think it's going to be a significant one. I wouldn't be surprised if week 1, right off the bat, he gets more touches than any other running back on the Lions team. Am I crazy for that?
I don't think that would shock me. I don't think that would shock me at all. And at the same time, what harm is there in having the insurance policy be Adrian Peterson? And I know I'm not trying to say that he's going to be okay with having a reduced role, but isn't it just, aren't the Lions better to have him on the team than to not have him on the team? In terms of quality of player, in terms of what he can bring to the table.
I mean,
I think it's pretty close.
yeah.
I mean, going back to the roster, the only really person who does a similar role is Bo Scarborough. Now, Scarborough did pretty well in his limited role last year, but one, he's another dude who has a lot of injury concerns.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I think honestly, what we saw last year is probably the best you're going to get out of him.
Yep.
I think if Peterson still has a bit in the tank, and he still had a few good games last year, that might be a bit of a better option, even with his age being up there.
I mean, if the question is simply Bo Scarborough or Adrian Peterson, to me, there's no question Adrian Peterson is still the better back. I guess my concern is just like, why is this the position we're continuing to add to right now? Like we went this offseason and added a ton of guys. They have a lot of talent. And it kind of goes to this overall philosophy of like we've got to get the run game going. We've got to pound the rock and take the ball out of Matthew Stafford's hands, and that's not how I think you win in today's NFL. I know this is something that me and Patricia are on a stalemate at this point, but it's just like it's more feeding into that, and I think maybe that's at the core why I'm not excited about this move like some other people are. But I think you're right, Ryan. I think in terms of overall talent, the Lions definitely get better with Adrian Peterson on the roster. I can't argue against that.
Couple of things. One, over or under 4.5 catches for Adrian Peterson in 2020.
I mean,
how many did Bo Scarborough have last year?
I'll go 5.
Do you have one?
You'll go 5?
Yes.
But that's what I mean. I think the one thing that I don't like about this signing is that Adrian Peterson is such a predictable back. Like, he's not going to catch passes. What he's going to be in there to do is run, or it's going to be play action.
Right.
So, I mean, there isn't that dimension of versatility to him. Last year, by the way, he had 17 catches on 23 targets, and that was playing 16 games. So didn't really have too many better options in Washington.
Just go split backs. There you go.
Oh, man.
DeAndre Swift one side, Adrian Peterson on the other. Who says no?
Oof.
There's no lightning or thunder to flash like when we had Monster on the show. But the one other thing, would you have rather had Leonard Fournette at $4.2 million,
no.
Or are you? Yeah, you're much better off with Adrian Peterson.
I mean, you know what I think about spending on running backs. The best part of this deal is that it was cheap.
Okay, all right, that's fair. I mean, I think at this point in his career, I'd probably rather have Leonard Fournette, but at the price point, I think you get a low risk, high reward with Peterson because at the absolute worst, he gets cut.
True. And that won't happen right away. I think he's plug and play at this point. Like I said, I think he might be the leading toucher in the backfield this offseason, or this first week of the season, I should say. The other thing I want to just bring up quickly so that we can get it out of the way, I want to not just gloss over the fact that there are moral reasons to not like this signing. Obviously there's some things in Peterson's past that have made people shun him for good, and I understand that, and I want to respect that. It's not something I want to get too much into because it's an argument we've probably already rehashed for years and years and years, but at the same time, it's not something you should completely ignore. It should be something that's factored into bringing him into Detroit, and I know there are a lot of Lions fans that are upset about it, and the Lions took that risk, and they, a lot of teams take risks like that. They sign guys that are unpopular because it makes them a better football team, and that's what the Lions did today, and maybe that's selling their soul a little bit, and maybe that's going to turn off some fans, but it's what they decided to do, and they're certainly not alone in that kind of conduct in this business.
Yeah, and every fan has every right to feel that way.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
All right.
They have every reason to take umbrage with it, but yeah.
All right. When we come back, we're going to start talking about the practice squad the Lions have made, a 16-man practice squad for the first time in NFL history, and then also the Lions lost a player at the same position as Adrian Peterson. We're going to talk about it next on the mini podcast, Lions training camp / I don't know, Adrian Peterson edition. Great outro, Jeremy. We'll see you in a second.
Could have been worse.
All right. Before we jump in, let me give some thanks. Respected Man, thank you for the 5 months sub. Appreciate you. And then Z Snyder 84 with 6 months. The Amazon Prime subscription. Guys, we have a lot of new people watching us on Twitch, and I'm not sure how many are familiar with Twitch. Just so you know, there's a way you can support our stream financially a little bit. You just being here is enough, but if you have Amazon Prime, you can link it to your Twitch account. You can subscribe to us every month for free, and we get a little kickback for that. What subscribing does for you is no ads for you at all when you jump on the feed, or whenever we roll ads, which is never at this point, but if we get big enough, might make sense for me to do it. Not saying I will. You'll never get any ads if you're subscribed to the channel. You also get a bunch of emotes every time you subscribe to the channel, and I'm going to throw all 5 of them in the chat right now. Boom. So you get my dog, Zazu, you get Ryan's dog, Goose, you get a couple little lions, and then you get a little angry Stafford emote every time you subscribe. So if you can do that, we appreciate it. It's also September, which means they're giving deals on subscriptions this month. I don't know what they are. I don't care really, but look into it if you're interested. Otherwise, just join, just follow, just get notifications every time we go live. Watch us on YouTube. I'm sure there are people watching on YouTube right now. Subscribe to that. Listen to us on the podcast. I don't know. What else? That's all my spiel is. Just wanted to do a little self-promo. What's that?
Did you guys know that we write about the Detroit Lions?
Oh, yeah. We also have a website. It's called prideofdetroit.com.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably important to plug, too.
Maybe. But we don't
do what?
We don't get money for clicks, so we don't really care if you show up there. Just kidding. Just kidding, SB Nation. Just kidding. Please read our stuff.
Following on Twitter is always good, though.
Yeah, that too. Do you plan to talk about the Chicago matchup? Not during this episode. We are going to have a full Chicago episode. I believe on Thursday night we're going to be doing it live. If not, it'll be on YouTube and our podcast platform. But it's purely a Chicago Bears preview podcast. We're going to have a special guest. But for tonight, it's just Adrian Peterson and the practice squad and Jason Huntley. And we're going to get in and out because I have to do a Bears podcast in 30 minutes. So, hey, tomorrow is there going to be an injury report? No, there will be one on Wednesday. That will be the first one of the week. So Wednesday is the first time they officially practice. So you have on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So good question. Joshua Mercer with the 2 gifted subs. Thank you, Joshua. Appreciate it. And congratulations to Sir Rogelio and Crash and Dern. Enjoy the new subscriptions.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
And every time you get a sub, look at that awesome alert that shows up. That's pretty cool, right?
That's pretty cool. Hey, how many career receiving touchdowns do you think Adrian Peterson has?
Career without looking?
Yeah.
2.
Okay, so how many years has he been playing now? Is that like
Since 2007.
I don't say
13
He
seasons.
has
14
seasons.
14?
Well, he missed a year though.
He did.
Well, he didn't miss a year because he played 1 game.
Okay,
Oh, he
well,
was suspended after he started? Or whatever.
I'm gonna say
We got some 2s, some 5s, some 8s in chat.
I'm kind of thinking. I mean, this is high, but I'm thinking around like 20. That's my guess.
6.
6.
And
Six.
he never had a season where he had more than 1.
Oh, that is much less than I expected.
The Lions, it feels like the Lions really like to either run a running back out of the flat or a fullback or a tight end out of the flat in the goal line. So there's a chance. I'm going to say there's a chance this year. He doubles.
I mean,
it.
also we've seen like Nick Ballore catch a
that's what I'm saying.
touchdown,
Like, yeah,
so.
they really like to run those kind of plays. So this could be the year he gets 2.
Adrian Peterson has 289 career receptions. He has 4 seasons where he ran the ball more times in that season than he has catches in his entire career.
So he's ran
Can
the
we
ball.
talk about that?
He ran the
Adrian
ball.
Peterson.
He ran the ball 363 times 1 year.
Ugh, crazy.
Wow.
That's
Can we-
insane. That's 22.7 attempts per game.
Hey,
That's
can we agree
nuts.
though that when we finally get in-game pictures of Adrian Peterson in Lions jersey, it's going to go into that book of legends in the wrong uniform kind of thing.
Yo,
Oh, 100%.
Yep.
Like, I'm curious to see what Minnesota Vikings fans think about this, because I know they've been kind of disconnected from him for a few years now, but that's going to be weird.
I'm not going to lie.
You have to
Definitely gonna be
hate
weird.
it. Could you ever imagine Calvin Johnson in a Packers uniform? You just vomit immediately.
Ugh. Nasty.
So there has been
Oh.
a Goose cameo request. Is he in house or not? No.
He was last night. He stayed with me for
Aw.
the first time since my accident. Because my parents wanted some alone time.
What? You're talking about your parents.
Dude, you wouldn't be talking to me if it wasn't for my parents doing what they do during alone time.
Oh
So
my God. Well,
It's too much information,
you
right?
know what? At least you can speak about it openly. It's natural, right?
well, I mean, I hate it. I'm super interested now, by the way, because that year where I told you Adrian Peterson had 363 rushes, he did not lead the league in rushing.
Really?
Yeah, I'm trying
What
to
year was
figure
that?
out. That was 2008.
2008. Who would be Bill Cows back then?
That's too early for
Hmm.
Le'Veon, right?
I think
That's
so, because
too
like
early for Le'Veon.
whenever I know this
Yeah,
is
it's
way
too
too early,
early.
but whenever I think of like a running back getting a ridiculous amount of carries in a year, I think of DeMarco Murray.
Oh
I'm
my
thinking like Priest
goodness.
Holmes,
That's-
but I think it's
that's
too
not
late
the
for
right
Priest
time frame.
Holmes.
I don't think anybody is ever going to get it. But by the way, so Adrian Peterson led the league in rushing yards. He had 1760. But this player, he also burned the Lions one time, like really, really bad.
Can you give me a hint?
That should
What
be a bit-
what
that
Sean,
should
team
be
is
a
that
Sean
big
in?
win.
Alexander's not a bad guess from Dustin Whitehead. Peyton Hillis?
NFC
Wait,
South
wait.
is the only other hint I'll give you.
NFC South.
NFC South.
It was a week
I
one
mean-
matchup.
I don't think it wouldn't have been like Reggie Bush. I don't think.
Wait, hold on. I
Um,
think it was actually this season when he burned the Lions was 2008. Because yeah, Matt Ryan was a rookie.
Okay, who's
So
the
the Falcons?
Falcons running back?
Yeah,
They have
I don't even know. Who's the Falcons running back?
so Michael Turner? No,
Michael Turner.
Wow.
was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. 376 rushing attempts.
Oh, jeez.
They were really protecting that rookie quarterback.
And they didn't have to
I don't know
because he
how I
threw a
got Michael
66-yard touchdown on his very first NFL pass.
Well, the first game was first game against Detroit. That was the 0-16 season, but 22 attempts for 220 yards.
Wow, look at the Packers leading rusher. It was Ryan Grant. I don't remember that at all. Do you remember
I
Ryan
remember.
Grant?
I remember Ryan
Yeah.
Grant.
He's a bit of a chunker, right?
Yeah, he was a little thick boy.
Who got it? Oh, Fallen got it. Well, go.
Oh,
Fallen.
nice. Was it after I gave 100 clues?
It was. I think it was after the Falcons clue. Falcons
Yeah.
2008.
Well, I was gonna when you said NFC South, I was thinking about who the Falcons back was, and I was leaning towards Michael Turner, but I always associate him with the Chargers, so I wasn't sure what year that was.
Yeah, some of the other good names from the top 10: Clinton Portis, number 3;
Oh, I said Clinton.
Matt Forte, number 4;
Mm-hmm. That's pretty good.
Thomas Jones with the New York Jets;
It's a throwback.
I don't even know if I know
Jamal
who that is.
Lewis with Cleveland.
Thomas Jones was
Oh,
a Bear
with
running back.
Cleveland.
Nobody would ever get number 10 in 100 million years.
I don't even know who
Houston
that is.
Texans, Steve Slayton.
Jeez, what did he have? Like 3 seasons in the NFL tops?
Dude, so close. He had 4.
He was the third round pick that year, and they basically fed him the ball.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he had a really good year, and then the next year he fell off. He was from West Virginia, right?
Also, shout out to number 14, Frank Gore.
Nice.
Shout out to Frank Gore's son playing college football. You're
Hell yeah.
all officially old now.
Davey asks, Jeremy, you guys are obviously all in on the Lions roster and stuff. Ever take a look at the division rivals roster and practice squad? In a way, yes. Not that detailed, but every week of the season we have a preview podcast with the opponent's guests. So we'll get into that kind of sort of stuff. We'll talk about their team mostly and then matchups. And then the way it usually works is it's about a 30, 40-minute podcast. The first segment is us talking to them about early in the season. It'll be about their offseason, the moves they've made, where they think they're strong, that sort of thing. And then the second half of it is us talking about matchups and then making predictions. When we get later into the season, we'll probably be talking more about how the season has gone, that sort of thing. And then, still kind of do the matchups and preview thing. But, generally speaking, in the offseason, we don't do too much into the other teams' rosters. We do try to get a little more focused on the division, but starting, week 1 technically starts in 4 hours. Like, Monday is the start of week 1, so we'll be right into the season stuff. We're going to have a couple extra podcasts this week. So we're going to have our Bears preview podcast. That's going to be a full-length one rather than our normal mini podcast for First Bite is what we call our preview podcast. And then we have an interview podcast hosted by someone entirely different, but I don't want to make any sort of promises until it's all edited and ready to go. But that's going to hopefully, fingers crossed, be a recurring podcast throughout the season. I don't even know if Ryan knows about it.
No, I don't, and I'm a co-host.
You are. John has disappeared. He's gone. But I think once he comes back, we're going to kick back in. Okay. Brennan, thank you for the follow. Also, I missed a couple other follows. Rocky555, Fury in here, thank you for the follow. And Mathis, thank you for the follow. He already got right. the sub too, right? Mathis came in here, followed, immediately got a sub. All right, we're going to get into it. Give me a second of silence, and then we will jump into the second half of the podcast. And welcome back to the mini PODcast, where we're talking Adrian Peterson, and now we're going to move on to the practice squad. The Lions developed their 16-man practice squad. And actually, before we even get to that, let's talk about the roster cut that we talked about a little bit yesterday that turned out to be a significant one. Lions' 5th-round pick, Jason Huntley, was waived on Saturday. And unfortunately, I don't know if the Lions were planning on bringing him back to the practice squad, but they were not able to because the Philadelphia Eagles claimed him. He is now part of their 53-man roster and doesn't look like he's coming back unless the Eagles really don't like what they see. Guys, was this a blunder on the Lions' part? Was this them understanding that they were about to sign Adrian Peterson? Are you angry, upset, disappointed, indifferent? How are you guys feeling about this move? Let's start with John this time.
Kind of what I touched upon yesterday. Even when they mentioned that he was waived, there's still the possibility that he could be returned. But I just said it's disappointing. That's really the best way to describe this. Is that when you spend a 5th-round pick on a pretty dynamic young running back like that, obviously he's pretty small, but wicked speed. He could basically be a pretty decent 3rd down back. Not only is waiving him kind of a surprise, but just now not even getting to reap the rewards of a long-term project. It seems extremely disappointing to me as not only a Lions fan, but also if you look at some of the assets the Lions have put into that. Obviously, 5th-round picks, they don't necessarily see a lot of snaps, so this year probably would have been pretty quiet. But one, you could have spent that pick on a punter, which, no offense to Jack Fox, but he doesn't necessarily have the pedigree that some guys might have. Say Braden Mann, for example, who's popular. And then also, this is just a bit of a nitpicky, a bit too negative, but I'm thinking about one, essentially you traded Quandre Diggs for 5th-round pick that eventually went through a few more trades and then finally came back to Detroit, which the Lions then spent on Huntley. Or you can also look at it from the Darius Slay perspective, when the Lions traded a Darius Slay for a 3rd-round pick and a 5th-round pick. That wasn't the exact same 5th-round pick, but essentially the Eagles got that back when they claimed Huntley. So there's a lot of disappointment going around.
Ryan, you feel the same way?
I'm not very upset about it because it's just a 5th-round pick.
That's it?
Yeah, that's really it. I mean, let me ask you this question, Jeremy. Are you more upset that the Lions spent a 2nd-round pick on DeAndre Swift, or more upset they drafted a running back in the 5th round and he got cut?
That's an unfair question.
Well, because
Yeah.
if you're getting upset with draft strategy, here's what happened. The Lions ended up taking a guy who could come into camp, and I think he was a safety valve. I think he was truly, hey, you know what? If the transition from Agnew being a cornerback to being a wide receiver doesn't really hold, well, you know what? We have a guy that we drafted who is a return specialist and a running back. It must seem as though Ty Johnson just outperformed Jason Huntley, and the Lions trust him more as a special teams player. So you just cut bait with the 5th round pick. Because you have better players. You have better players in house. I'm not gonna get all upset about the Lions cutting a 5th round pick when they just had better options on the team.
Right. And I'm with you in some place, and then some people be like, well, if you had such a crowded room, why did you draft him in the first place? I think part of the reason why Jason Huntley was waived, and chat's all over it already, is Jamal Agnew. I think Jamal Agnew making such a seamless transition to wide receiver, Jamal Agnew continuing to show that he's a really good punt returner and probably going to be this team's kick returner as well, meant that there just wasn't a role for Huntley this year. But there could have been in the future. And as someone who's actually seen Jason Huntley play a little bit in a Lions uniform, I have to say it looked like there was some hope there that he could be, at the very least, a backup punt returner and a potential threat, like a J.D. McKissick type of thing, like where he's coming in on 3rd down and he wasn't anywhere near as ready as a blocker, as a pass protector. And I think maybe that's part of the reason why he was cut in the first place. But as a guy who can come in and catch out of the backfield, a guy that just is dangerous with the ball in his hands in open field. And so to have that kind of weapon in your hands for a couple weeks and then gone to another NFC team, it sucks. But at the same time, the Lions are in such a good position with their skill position players. I think that kind of glosses over this a little bit and doesn't make it hurt so much. But it's never good to see a 5th round pick playing somewhere else in his rookie season, especially when you look at a guy like Theo Riddick. Like, that guy was a 6th round pick and he stood around for beyond his rookie deal. So it's not like, a 5th round pick is nothing. You can get contributors that late, and sure, Theo Riddick is definitely more the exception than the rule. But to not have a guy that was so much raw talent around, at least on the practice squad, it's unfortunate. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm not mad at the Lions for drafting him. I'm not mad at the Lions for waiving them. If anyone I'm mad at, it's the Eagles for claiming him. But in the end, it's just it was an unfortunate series of events to lose Huntley, and it sucks. But it's not like this. You can't be like one of those guys like, this is the reason why the Lions are where they are. This is the reason this franchise is in the dumps, is because they lose their 5th round draft pick to another team. Like, no, that's not how the NFL works. If you hit on your day 1 and 2 picks, you're going to be fine. And that's where the Lions haven't been great at. And so it's not a roster changing move. It's not a franchise, drift shifting loss, but it just kind of sucks to me. That's all I feel about it.
You could be the Jacksonville Jaguars. They literally cut the 4th overall pick in the 2017 NFL draft.
True.
That's a big yikes.
All right, let's move on to the practice squad, because the Lions did establish their 16-man practice squad. Now, there's a good chance, even by the time this is dropped on our podcast feed, that it's going to look a little different. But I think the thing that jumps out to me right away is 2 specialists. They got a backup long snapper in Steve Wordle, and their backup punter in Aaron Sipos, both on the 16-man practice squad. And I don't really know how to read this, because on one hand, the practice squad is now 16 guys, so you can probably afford to keep a long snapper and not be cutting someone who should be on the practice squad. You got so many open spots. But on the second hand, like, is this them saying to Don Muhlbach and Jack Fox, like, hey, the slightest of mistakes, we got a guy waiting in the wings, so don't mess up? Is that the proper way to be reading this?
I think it offers them the ability, just by expanding that practice squad, that, they have a punter who is not proven. Mm-hmm. They have a long snapper who's long in the tooth, but also the best long snapper of all time. And I think that it's just kind of one of those like afforded luxuries because of the expansion of the practice squad. because I would be really interested to see whether or not they would have made the practice squad had it not been as big as it is, because you're definitely keeping David Blau. You're definitely keeping, Bo Benshaw. Some of these guys are surefire, guys to bring back and put on the practice squad because they play valuable positions. Punter and long snapper, it seems like, if in the middle of the season your punter goes down, you go out and get you go out and you get a guy off the waiver wire off of, wherever. I think it's just an afforded luxury that they could have a player like that who has been in-house, who has, been through, quote unquote training camp with the team, and they have him stashed and ready to go should things go sideways.
Yeah, and I mean, they get to practice with the team too, so they can kind of continue to develop that chemistry with Don Muehlbach or with Jack Fox, just in case. So there is that kind of added benefit. Is that how you view it too, John?
Yeah, that's kind of. I was, pretty hesitant to pencil in Muehlbach as a sure thing. Obviously, he's getting up there, and if anything, this would have been the right year to transfer to a new long snapper because there's no chemistry with the holder and punter. But I think keeping them on the practice squad really doesn't make that big of a difference. Like, I'm looking at some of the guys that the Lions cut and didn't bring back to the practice squad, and obviously you can talk about having an extra punter or long snapper isn't necessarily very valuable. But at the same time, I don't think the Lions are going to be missing out on the likes of, say, Wes Hills or Chris Lacey not being on the practice squad. In terms of them getting poached, I don't know how likely that would have happened, but I don't have a problem with it going forward.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple situation to me. It's just, I mean, it's fine having those guys. You have the extra spots for it. Like you said, it helps develop chemistry, and it's there for an emergency on a rainy day, whatever. Any other surprises here on the practice squad? I think bringing back Kenny Wiggins and Bo Benshaw, kind of put at ease some of the concerns we had about how little depth that they had, that they decided to keep only 4 guards on their 53. So you got a guy like Kenny Wiggins coming back, and now you have Ode Ibushi, who just re-signed with the team, and they put Mike Ford on IR, which we're not going to get too much into, but now the Lions do have a veteran presence there on the offensive line on the 53. Looking elsewhere, Isaac Nauta makes a team. Matt Sokol does not. So the Lions have decided on who they're kind of their backup, maybe third string tight end. We still kind of have to wait and see what's going to happen with Hunter Bryant. Looks like they're probably going to put him on IR, but we still kind of have to wait for that to happen. Any other names kind of jump out to you of either surprises or at least notable guys on the practice squad this year?
I think one of the most interesting things, not about the practice squad, Jeremy, but real quick, that the Lions really valued Hunter Bryant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I
mean, so much so that they were willing to keep him. I mean, it looks as though because of roster numbers that he's probably going to end up on IR and that, but they didn't even want to take the chance of cutting him.
Yeah, they didn't want to put him on waivers. That much is clear, because they could have waived injured him and again brought him back to IR, and it would have been the exact same as what they're essentially doing if they put him on IR. But this way, there's no chance of a team claiming him. Even, it doesn't happen often, but when you waive injured someone, there are teams that occasionally claim him anyways, and the Lions weren't willing to chance that. So yeah. And it makes sense when you saw what he was doing at training camp. The guy was a beast in terms of route running. He's catching a ton of balls. So, yeah, I think that's quite notable. And I think once he's healthy enough, he could even, make a small but significant impact this year.
And then the one other notable thing before I let John get to what he wants to say is the fact that we ever get ourselves worked up over whether or not the Lions should keep 2 or 3 quarterbacks because we don't want to let the third quarterback get to waivers should die right now.
Right.
It should die an immediate death, because try to just put yourself in the shoes of any other NFL organization. Like, they're not worried about poaching a third string quarterback. Like, that's not going to happen. It's like the chances of it happening are so slim that we should never, ever get ourselves worked up about it. And I know that's the joke in town, is that the 2 best players is always the backup goaltender for the Red Wings and the backup quarterback for the Detroit Lions. But that should die a most unhonorable death right now.
I mean, not only did David Blau clear waivers, but a guy that we talked about for about 5 minutes last night, Josh Rosen, cleared waivers. A guy that
I know.
I mean, if you're going to claim any quarterback that happens to hit waivers, why not a top 5 draft pick? Just a couple of years after being drafted. Granted, he was on a rookie deal that was a little more expensive than maybe some teams are willing to shell out for a developmental project. But if Josh Rosen doesn't get claimed on waivers, you're probably pretty safe. Dropping your third string guy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, John. Any other notable things that you saw from the practice squad this year?
Yeah, so one, Kevin Strong was probably one of the more surprising cuts.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to see him back on the practice squad. I think more than likely we'll probably see him on the active roster sometime this year. Victor Bolden, I feel like he probably took the spot that Huntley was probably going to occupy. Maybe the Lions had to scramble a bit. We'll see. But the thing that I really want to touch upon is the fact that they have Ben Shaw and Wiggins on the practice squad. Now, I think having those two is good, but it's funny, when originally the practice squad was announced, we're like, oh, Ode Ibushi wasn't included. And we kind of thought maybe the Lions didn't really value him that much. But it turns out by signing him to the active roster, it means they actually liked him more than the other two, which I find a little bit surprising. But I think either way, the Lions, by having this expanded roster, practice squad, it's pretty beneficial because now you keep two guys like Wiggins and Ben Shaw. You have a veteran, you have a developmental guy. I think the Lions, I was a bit skeptical about the 53 for the interior offensive line, but I think it's looking much better with them there.
No question. And like I said at the top, this is all going to change a lot during the season. It's probably going to change a couple more times before week 1 even gets started. But for now, it looks like, I think a lot of our concerns were on the depth on the offensive and the defensive line. And so they kept a couple guys. They brought in Ode Ibushi back on the 53. Like you said, they keep Bo Benshaw and Kenny Wiggins on the offensive line. Frank Heron, Kevin Strong, and Jonathan Wynn are all on the practice squad. So Lions have at least a little bit more depth there. Maybe not as much talent as they'd like, but at least depth players. And so I think they're looking okay going into week 1. But for now, we're going to leave it there. Be sure to stay tuned to our podcast stream this entire week. We're going to have at least 2 podcasts for you this week, including a big Bears preview, because guess what? We're recording this a week away from week 1. By this time next week, the Lions will be 1-0. I'm saying it. They're going to be 1-0 by this time next week. I almost said 0-0-1, but I'm not going to say they're 1-0 by this time next week. So be sure you're subscribed to all of our platforms, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Twitch, whether it's any of your podcast platforms, and we're going to have so much content for you also on Pride of Detroit, so make sure you check that out. But until next time, it's chaos. Be kind. We'll see you in a few days. Okay. Really quickly, I got to thank a bunch of people who subbed and all that sort of stuff. I got to be out here in like 5 minutes, so we're not going to have a lot of afterglow here. Uncle Indigo, thank you for the 2 gifted subs to Crook and Davey. And then my boy, Bearded Blevins, coming in with how many months was that? I missed it. Where is it? 4 months. And he says, friendly reminder, the Lions have never lost a Super Bowl. Facts. Straight facts. Let me see if anything else. Yes, Brad Kaya got claimed. I'm sorry we didn't talk about Brad Kaya on our podcast. I know Ryan probably should have jumped in there with that, but caught sleeping on
Felicia. I see up to
Kaya Hive, stand up.
No Discord recording right now. No, we'll probably move back to Discord eventually, but Ryan doesn't have it on his computer yet.
I haven't downloaded it on my work computer. I'm sorry.
But this outlay is okay. It's not great, but it's not bad. This also allows us to record a little easier.
I'm gonna jump out of here.
Okay, then I think we're gonna end it. Let's go raid someone. I believe POD Reno is currently on Twitch. So
Playing Fall Guys. Shocker.
He's playing Call of Duty actually. So you're wrong.
Oh wow.
But he is gonna play Fall Guys later. So let's all go raid our good friend POD Reno. I'm probably going to join him for some video games later, but I don't think I'm going to be streaming on this channel. So if you want to watch me play some Fall Guys or whatever, go over to POD Reno's stream right meow and go say hi and enjoy yourself. We'll see you guys in a little bit.
Deuces.
Now's the part where I realize it takes a while to get the raid going. Waiting. All right, guys. See you Tuesday. All right, we are out.
Beautiful. All right. Hey, have a good one.
You too, bud. Thanks again.
Hey, it's Josh. The whole crew's here.
Hey,
And
up,
Indigo.
Josh? What's up, Indigo? What's up, Aaron?
And Aaron.
Did everybody come over from the Quick Pride of
Oh, he's
Detroit
raiding.
podcast? Oh, raiding with the party of 28. Oh my goodness. What's up, everybody? What's up, John Whitaker? Rival.
Hey, loser.
Oh, I just realized that my alerts aren't working? Question mark? No, they are. Why didn't the raid show up?
It's in the chat. I don't know about.
Yeah, maybe it's delayed.
I'm
I
like
don't know.
pinned down here.
But thanks so much, Jeremy, for the raid.